Now we're going to take a look at all of the Psychic type Pokemon that you have access to in Pokemon Black and White. The interesting thing is the first Pokemon in the dex for Pokemon Black and White is actually their mythical Pokemon, Victini. And since it is a mythical, this is going to be a Pokemon that you would only have access to if you were able to do the event, which is not a thing anymore. So you're not going to be able to use this thing on your team. However, let's look at its stats. This thing is a Psychic Fire type, which is a very cool typing, and it has 100 across the board, like other mythical Pokemon. This is a very strong Pokemon. Plus, it has the ability Victory Star, which is going to boost your Pokemon and your ally Pokemon's accuracy by 1.1. So that would be helpful in some of these moves that have lower accuracy, sort of like V-Create. That gets a boost in its accuracy, and that's going to be very helpful for you. So with this Pokemon, you can run either a physical attacker or a special attacker, whatever you want to do. But like I said, it's a mythical. You're probably not going to be able to use this thing on your team. In terms of early Pokemon that you have access to, Musharna is one of the first Psychic types that you're going to be able to add to your team. Stats-wise, this thing does have some decent bulk, with a 116 HP and an 85 defense, 95 special defense. This thing does have a decent special attack as well at 107. It is very, very slow with only a 29 speed, but with this thing it's made to take some hits and deal some hits back. If you were to run this thing, I would recommend running the move Calm Mind. That's going to boost up that special defense, boost up your special attack, and just make it that much harder for your opponent to take you out. Plus, you can run the move Moonlight to heal yourself up if you need to. And with the ability Synchronize, if your opponent tries to poison you, they're going to get poisoned in return. So a very interesting Pokemon. It's actually pretty decent for such an early game Pokemon. Another early Psychic type Pokemon you're going to have access to is the Psychic Flying type Swoobat. This thing is pretty fast, with a 114 speed. However, its other stats don't really back that up. Its highest stat other than its speed is its special attack, which is only at 77. So this thing's not going to be able to hit things very hard, and it's not going to be able to take that many hits. So this is a pretty fast Pokemon that's not actually going to be able to do that much on your team. So I'd probably skip this one out. Now, if you're really wanting that Psychic Flying type Pokemon on your team, Sigilyph is way better. This thing has better stats than Swoobat. Of course, Swoobat is a faster Pokemon. Because this thing only has 97 speed, that is still decent, and it's still going to be able to outspeed certain things that you need it to. The main thing that you want this thing for is that 103 special attack, meaning this thing is going to be able to do more damage than the Swoobat. The next two Psychic-type Pokemon we're going to look at are actually version-exclusive Pokemon. Gothitelle being the version-exclusive Psychic-type if you're running Pokemon Black. This thing has a 110 special defense, which is really good. 95 defense and 95 special attack is pretty decent as well. This thing isn't the fastest because it only has 65 speed, but if you're wanting to run this thing, you could make it work. Just know that it's mainly there with a little bit of its bulk. It's not very fast, and in my opinion, Reuniclus is actually way better than Gothitelle. This thing has better special attack at 125. Of course, its special defense stat is lower, but that doesn't really matter because this thing has a 110 HP, meaning it's going to be able to take more hits in the long run. Plus, it has an even better set of abilities. Overcoat and Magic Guard are going to help you out defensively. It's going to make it where you're either immune to Sandstorm and Hail, or you can only be damaged by direct attacks, and that's amazing. Plus, Regenerator is actually a huge ability for this thing to have access to. This is a way better Pokemon than Gothitelle. Just know that Reuniclus is only going to be found in Pokemon White. Beheeyem happens to be one of those Psychic types that a lot of people seem to forget about. And of course, being a Pokemon that you don't get to until later on in the game, that actually does make some sense. Special attack wise, this thing is really great with a 125 special attack and its special defense is pretty good as well, with a 95. Its other stats are a little bit on the lower side, however, with 75 HP attack and defense, and its speed is dismal at only 40. However, if you do want to run this thing, you can have access to Trick Room, and you're going to make that 40 speed actually an advantage in the Trick Room. This thing can already do a lot of damage, but if you have access to its hidden ability Analytic, those moves are going to be doing even more damage because of how slow this thing is. So this is actually a pretty decent choice. There are some things that you might want to run other than this just because of how this thing is very specific in its niche. But with Beheeyem, it can actually do a lot of damage and it can do a lot of work. You can't talk about Psychic-type Pokemon without mentioning Meloetta, and of course Meloetta is only here because of one of its two forms, being its base form. This is normal Psychic, which is actually a pretty cool typing, and it has really great stats. 128 special attack, 128 special defense, and a 100 HP. And it does have decent speed as well at 90. However, being a mythical Pokemon, you're normally not going to have access to this thing to use it on your team. So there is all of the Psychic-type Pokemon that you will have access to in Pokemon Black and White. Which one would you use on your team if you use one of these Psychic types? I know a lot of people end up skipping out on the Psychic types, but they are pretty useful on your team. Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next Pokemon video.